All right, good evening, everyone. Yes, yes, yes. On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to the Wanda Coleman Theater and to a reading with What Books Press and Giant Claw featuring Lisa B., Celeste Goyer, Michael Ventura, Brian D. Price, and Sarah McClay. Please give it up for them. My name is Jimmy Vega, and I'm the Assistant Director of Beyond Baroque. I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary arts center located here in Venice, California. Founded in 1968, first as an experimental literary magazine before reimagining itself and becoming the literary institution we know it as today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and help support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops, readings, and performances. We are currently offering a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our free Monday night fiction workshop facilitated by Raquel Baker, and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop currently facilitated by James Fujinami Moore. We also have a number of paid in-person workshops, such as Unfolding Through Signatured Time with Allison Adele Hedge-Koch, which will be our final intensive workshop of the year. Aside from our workshops, we offer several readings throughout the year. Tomorrow we have a double header, so to speak. In the afternoon, we will launch Breaking Pattern by Tisha Marie Reichley Aguilera. And in the evening, we'll host our final installment of our 2023 new series, featuring new work by Lily Hong, Elizabeth Houston, and Douglas Manuel on the theme Metadata. So all of this new work is commissioned by Beyond Baroque, so it's super exciting, and I encourage you to come back tomorrow evening for all of that. Apart from our programs, we offer several memberships to Beyond Baroque, starting at $60 for an individual membership. Purchasing a membership allows us to offer free online and in-person programming. It gives you a discount for some of our intensive workshops, and it really just sustains what we do here at the center. Which is to imagine the possibilities of language. So if you enjoy tonight, I highly, highly encourage you all to donate if you are able. I want to give a big, big thanks to our staff for making all of this possible. Quentin Ring, Ivan Salinas, Eric Alberg in the booth, Genesis Perez, Nick Foreman in the bookstore. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. So please, if you can, a nice warm thanks, round of applause to all of them. That's it for me and for the Beyond Baroque pitch. Now I do want to invite a very special person in the Beyond Baroque family, one of my greatest mentors, greatest teachers, greatest friends in poetry. And tonight I think is going to be a great evening full of family. So I appreciate you all being here. But please, warm, big thanks and big round of applause to Karen Kevorkian.
Jimmy gave this fulsome introduction because he's teetering on becoming a What Books author himself.
All right.
Yeah. No, we read his book and everybody said, "Can we publish this? Can we publish this?" So it's good. For those of you who may not know, What Books Press is now in next year will be its 15th year. And in that time we will have published next year it will be the high 50s, 55 books? Wow, 55 books. And we published a combination of poetry and fiction, and then things that maybe are partake of more than one genre. We've published a book of drawings by Gronk, who is the person who, the artist who supplies the cover drawings that make the appearance of all the books so distinctive and interesting. Gronk is somebody who's been around the Los Angeles art scene for many years. He was part of the ASCO, the Chicano performance art happening movement of the 70s, and he was notable for use in a protest about the absence of Chicano artists at LA County Museum. He went up and signed his name. He decided to make the outside exterior wall of the museum, his artwork, and he signed his name there. So this kind of, we like to think that it's not accidental that he does our covers. We like to think that it's this kind of relevance and kind of sass attitude that is good. It is, has something to do with the books that we publish. Mainly the books that we publish. We always say that we really look for a kind of for them to be robustly engaged and sensuously engaged with language, and that's really one of our criteria. Of course, we also want them to be deep. Is there? What books is the imprint of, pardon me, the Glass Table Collective, which is how this whole enterprise got started. A bunch of us sitting around and saying, well, wouldn't it be nice to publish the kinds of books that we like to read? And so that's sort of where it began. And then not too many years ago, we decided to add another imprint to it, which was the Giant Claw imprint. And I would say if there's any difference between the two books, if we say that the what books imprint are going for kind of say attitude as well as this kind of engagement with language. We might say of the Giant Claw books that they take it to a slightly more intense place. I mean, I think of what Frank O'Hara said about his work, that he just goes on his nerve, and I think, well, okay, that's a good way to think of the Giant Claw books. So there they are. So we're very excited to introduce these 5 writers for next year. The first, what I will do is introduce the bio of each one before the writer. We're going to start off tonight with Lisa Bernstein. Her book, God in Her Ruffled Dress, which I guess the title alone gives you an idea of the kind of attitude that we enjoy. It appears 34 years after the publication of her debut poetry book, The Transparent Body, and her poems have been in over 60 journals and anthologies. That's 60, not 16, 60. She's won creative writing fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Headland Center for the Arts, the UCross Foundation, among other places. She's also a singer, and I wish I could make her sing tonight. I don't know if I can. A jazz and a groove singer, and she has a band who she performs with throughout the country. She also is a professional psychic reader, so line up. The poems in this book God in her ruffled dress are smart, you wouldn't expect otherwise, surprising, profound, and subversive. So we're delighted to have published this wonderful book. So please welcome Lisa Beach.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. And thank you to everyone at Beyond Baroque. I read here before in 1985, so I'm really happy to be back. I seem to always be percussive here. So this is the first poem in the book. It's called God Number 2. My God, who is the bodies of all the men I've loved, the breasts I could not suck enough. Who is the cat's body with the eyelashes of a doll and the hardness of a doll's plastic chest? Who is the black space in the sky, the stars like holes stabbed, bleeding and stupid to be killed like a thief, restless, a tribe of outcasts in the desert, who is unpronounceable, who is carved in stone, particles of sand and granite adhering into a tablet, a forgotten language, who is the bodies in mass graves, the mossy hair overgrown above the graves, the mulch, the lily, the chlorophyll filling the air, the cow's gnashing teeth, the meat. God, who is the calcium, the code inside the chromosomes, the rebellion of the cells. My God, with the whisper, with the whiskery laughing, with the singing like rain hammering on the roof of the universe, resonating through my teeth and through the whiskey-throated singer. God of can't stop me, God of no sorrow, saying, write me, write me, write. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So I hope you're enjoying my Picasso-esque face. This poem is from the 4th section of the book. It's part of a series called Possession, and it's the first one in the series. It's called A God After Hours Watching Her. Kind of a different God here. Among many gods that we know. The woman is a bar of gold, and if you slit her skin along the center of each arm, down the flat of her thighs, the gold will break open like butter along her bones. She cannot be licked or cornered into the torment of touching, fevered and above herself, glowing with the liquid refrain of the tissue, her muscular nuance unrepentant. She is already fucked by the knife point of being. El sexo, el amor incorrigible, el instanto de paradiso, says the Mission Theater marquee, flickering in the open doorway, the men standing before the poster of La Insatiable with their heads thrown back. While this woman is the bar of gold they desire, nervous on the bar stool in a striped blouse and jeans. At the edge of a doorway where all bodies are in reach, she sits just outside the line of forgiveness, and the silhouettes waver between her and the ruby red room mirrored above her head. I wait until her third glass of gold rum before I let her see my face. Thank you. I used to go to a great club in the Mission District in San Francisco a lot. I live in Oakland and came down for this reading again, so it's a great excuse to come down to Venice and be part of the What Books community in person. So, but anyway, I used to go to the 16th Note a lot, and that inspired that poem. So this next piece is from the psychic reader part of my life. You know, all of us artists are pretty psychic. And in fact, most of us humans are pretty psychic, and it gets kind of beaten out of us through our acculturation by the time we become adults. Like, no, that isn't an invisible friend that you're seeing. But becoming a professional psychic was a way to kind of train and harness that, and to stop reading everybody. So don't worry, I'm not reading your thoughts. But we can make an appointment, and I can look at your movie, and it'll be fun. So the subject of this poem agreed to be portrayed anonymously in it. It's called Anemia. He stands, a samurai, gripping his sword, gray linen over his groin, headband, belt around his waist, a flickering image risen behind his flesh and blood body as he sits before me. And inside his fleshy chest, a pale blue ghost is also flickering. The woman he had slaughtered despite the Bushido honor code. She had been a mother. She lingers 750 years later, leaching the iron from his blood. Oh, he says, when she is described, I'm sorry. And this haunting figure, whoosh, vanishes. She leaves behind a clear view a few days later in the operating room of the polyps, slick and alive as sea creatures, which he grew in his colon as if to house her presence. Pulsing still, then grossly cut away. Back home, he starts to fill the depleted storehouses of iron in every cell. In that distant time, the iron is already being folded and hammered into his sword. Thank you. So this next poem was inspired by living through the Trump presidency, may we never have another, and simultaneously reading Richard III. Especially Queen Margaret's curse. Let this new soap I was really excited to discover Clean Well soap on the aisles of Whole Foods because it had this magic sanitizing ingredient, the herb thyme, which is referred to here as well as thyme. Let this new soap with its ancient oil of thyme spurt out onto the floor, then step on it. Walk through the murdered world and spread the melting foam, which, unlike thyme, is proved to sanitize. May it swipe away the thrown gauntlets of the aggrieved, whom I now see with clearer eyes. The young king, ever victim, vitriolic, who cut away the caring years that used to bind. The entrancing smile staring from Facebook of a man who enlaced his love in lies. Oh, what Richard III, pitiful warped monarch, has dredged up, pacing round me one more time. His mesmerizing rants echoing these self-lovers, and the head of our country spewing nightly on TV, until we all are trapped offspring of a murderous father. Sometimes we can only bend our heads and weep. I found this soap on the Whole Foods aisles, its essence recovered from antique times. Now I use it to clear the way and say my piece. Wounds fresh or hidden, may the pain you gave cease. May the spewers sound in fury, even breeding in memes, receive my glinting eyes, my staves, my sturdy, well-worded melody, till they dim in 5 dimensions and on shallow screens. Then the cast joins hands. We start the play and say our parts, and the house claps long for our young democracy, exiting with foam soap tracked by our souls, the inhalation of it coating the undersides of our hearts. Breathe it in. Seal the breaks from hauntful ghosts. True hope is swift and flies with swallows' wings. Kings it makes gods and meaner creatures kings. What are your grievances? Unearth the antidotes. Medicines whirling to life like shimmering leaves. So this is the last poem I'm going to read. It's called Lisa's Lord's Prayers. Our mistress, who art in star wash, bright be thy name. Thy queendom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily meed, and forgive our marks on others, as we forgive those who put a mark on us. And lead us not into the underworld, but deliver us from the dark. Our Father in the world's waters, glistening be thy net. Thy currents calm, thy steady arm extend over these oceans. Give us today the fish's flesh, and forgive our overtaking, as we forgive those who steal our catch. And lead us not into the dark gulf, but deliver us from storms. Our canopy arced over the universe, untouched be thy sheen. Thy net of time billow and shine in matter as in motion. Give us today our honeycomb, and forgive our history, as we forgive those who would forget. And steer us away from the black holes, but point us toward the light. Letters of God in every cell, golden be each stroke. Your power come, meaning be done, electrically in nerve and spirit. Give us today our act of truth, and forgive our indecision, as we forgive the strong-voiced who stay mute. And lead us not into judgment, but deliver us from fear. You, who art alive now, hallowed be thy name. Thy time has come. Thy will be done in action as in dreaming. Give yourself this day on earth, and forgive your failings, as you forgive those who fail all around you. And lead yourself from suffering into joy. Our cats, who art in Oakland, springy be thy paws. Thy cat food come, thy wish be done in day and night and cat dreams. Give us today our purr of love, and forgive our absence as we forgive the fleas who live in your fur. And lead us not with claw marks, but into languorous sleep. Oh yeah, where I might see the face of divinity that I want to see. Yes, I do. Yes, I might. I want to see that face. Yes, I might. Yes, I might. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Our next, I started to say singer. Hey, Celeste, give us a tune. Celeste Goyer. I think probably some of you know Celeste. She's a poet and a visual artist, and originally from Northampton, Massachusetts. I didn't know that about her. Celeste spent her 20s and 30s living in desert and mountain towns. I wish I had that on my resume. For 14 years, she edited and published a literary quarterly and hosted a reading series. Her debut collection of prose poems, The Shoes of Our Guest, shares the liberated, anything can happen atmosphere of Rimbaud's Illuminations, while rooted in the weirdness of Weird America. So I'm very happy to present Celeste, who's somebody I've known and whose work I've admired.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Thanks to the What Books crew and to Beyond Baroque, of course. Such an important place in our lives. Okay, let's do this. A nervous case of family romance. You went to bed with Hart Crane this morning, just as New York was going to bed with Mexico after walking all night in the rain. You have to teach your parents to drink and be angry with you, you said. The umbrella tried with touching and doomed efforts to keep you dry. You tried going to bed with the theater next. It was full of thirst and earnest advice to write more letters to your mother. Your self-explanations woke up instead, barking like hysterical dogs. Your uncomprehending father honored you by slowing his car to stare at you on the street, the curse of ugly parentage on your shoulders. This finally proved too much for you to sleep through. You tipped the scales in the other direction then and went to bed with an ogre to redress the balance of your lonely birthright. I made no demands, you insisted, as the dream university filled your shoes with sand, planted them like seeds. How long is too long? That's a question many of us have asked ourselves. How long is too long? Dust loves its job filling holes. Ants dig it out again to clear their highways and halls. I'm suspended in this heat like a bubble in molten glass. My bed's black. My clothes and books only stay inflated with cool air pumps. I sit on the bed and look at them. I can talk like anybody else, I say, but I don't hear anything coming out. Around noon, the wind purses its lips for the afternoon blow. A whole lot of sand needs a change of scenery. The heat makes us move deliberately, like monks at our tasks with ritual hands. I've read about rivers and how to use them, so this year I'm rebuilding my bridges to look more like shoes. The true power of a little water finding its way. In the vault. I kept it in a quiet box for you. The phone's ring that you didn't answer. The Easter clothes your mother wore until they collapsed. Your favorite drop, the terrible drop, the years when you did nothing. I kept it for you, the beauty parlor, the mink coat, the green lines on the little squirrel you wanted, the 5 minutes you shouldn't have been wearing your suede gloves, that look on the boy's face. I kept it in the freezer for you, the noise you make in bed when things are delayed, when there's no wind, the princess dress roller skating down a dark street, the anonymous tip from the parking attendant. I kept it safe for you, the open sea, how you shouted when you collided with it, the deep sugar where your good man died, the nasty creaking in front of your house in winter. I buried it for you, the hat that fell in front of your car, how the wheels sounded. And by request, we have in-flight meals. I believe if I spill my milk enough times, my mother will tell the story again, how she tried to back out on her wedding day. And her mother said, "That's nice, dear. Now put your dress on." Our volatile dads made of polyester, creases built in at the airplane factory. Obsidian buttons hold his face on tight, make cold fire we all duck from during dinners. We ordered a cotton dad, but they won't come into style for another 10 years. He's better off in his buzzing box that hangs in the sky, one hand on the throttle, one on the control stick between his legs, manipulating the ailerons, the elevators. Mom's a volunteer chemist here on loan from Corning, where glass lids are born. She's white, soft, folded carefully in many pieces, each piece with its own French name that we kiss. Away from the main road, where everything interesting happens, right? Away from the main road. The lion behind us believes in us. At least he wants to wear our shoes, our gloves. He had thin-pressed lips even before birth, and a nervous system of hard ice with those old-fashioned green eyes that can follow the faintest trail. My dream last night placed him on a cold sidewalk, about to drag his chain across a quiet, empty street. Horses made of dense cake lay down to wait, stretched out between the shafts of carriages. Their dark, square-cut heads weighed as much as pianos. And because this hell went up quickly and convincingly, a small crowd gathered to keep their most ethereal longings warm, that the lion then immediately plowed down. There it goes. And another request, hidden entrance. Today, Lake Otsego establishes summer. She rises from her bed this morning to row a submerged boat on her wide blue flank, her private hills of glass below. A man shouts, "My dear, it's time for love." Two women murmur as they float, making a basket for lost ducks. Lifeguards climb up on the dock, sunken boats cool in their hands. The rules they ask us to follow are written with gold stripes and blue-edged shadows on leaves of yellow plants. All right. Now, I hate to admit this, but I'm a useless, trivial hairball. I like to cook. I like hanging suspended in the shade of tall trees, writing on bread. I admit I'm a loser of this world. I'm part of it. I live here on a rock, stolen, doing nothing for my beans and peas. The roof of the house is a tender, bright green color, and I'm doing nothing to protect it from oxidation, from autumn, from birds, from the coming snow. If anyone finds this, tell them I'm sorry. I wanted to help. I'm no good. I can't improve anything. I live here with the words, "a great traitor," sewn on my shirts. Why can't I stop the 400-pound bear from moving into the kitchen, the hot tub? I can't concentrate while you're nailing your hats to the walls, so I'm writing this letter in the oven on bread, scratching words on it with a tiny needle. Yes, I'm sick. I'm part of the entire problem of sickness. I have a big key to this rock, stolen, with the words, "pretending everything's okay" on it, a motto I can't escape. Is this proof I'm actually already dead? My head aches as I sew nightgowns and write letters in the oven. I can handle anything except the coming hard years, but still I want to help. I'm stating this as plainly as I can stand to under these conditions, hoping for some understanding one day. I destroyed this place. I am part of it. I can't prove that everything's fine. Good food's everywhere except in the right kitchens. I hear you clearly with my remaining good ear. Okay. And I think I do want to share the epigraph for the second part of this book, if I can locate it and take a second here. Okay. The epigraph has two voices in it. What, I asked Cage, John Cage, is the advantage of not knowing what you are doing? It cheers up the knowing, he explained. Otherwise, knowing will be very self-conscious and frequently guilty. That was in his great collection of art criticism writing. If you've not read it, I highly recommend it. It's called Reported Sightings. Okay, and finally, your spider knows. The strict, bossy stars have no hands, just hooves or water pitchers or planets at the ends of their arms. They can't move us around by the head, make us quit a job or fall in love. But this little toy town they dreamed up, its petticoats made of rabbit fencing, its rabbits big enough to ride to the store to pick up the starting over book.
Oh, man, that was great. Thank you, Celeste. Now we have a little change of pace. We have a prose writer, Michael Ventura, who is mostly known for his journalism, having published 1,000 articles and 3 books of nonfiction, including a book on John Cassavetes. Edendale, his new book, is his 4th published novel. It tells a story set in the earliest days of filmmaking and old Hollywood. It's fastidiously researched and gorgeously written and has an immensely fascinating narrator. He lives in Pacific Grove with his wife, Jasmine, who is one of Gail's former students, and Chuck's at LMU. So please welcome Michael Ventura.
Thanks for showing up. We have 12 minutes apiece this time instead of 10, which gives me time for a little bit of fun. The person who put these rings on my fingers can't be here tonight, and this thing is being televised after a fashion. This is part of a series that all begins with the same line. On one of the days I've loved you, I thought, this unnamed cove that we have a name for, your warm lips, every time we've kissed there. That's what I hope to be thinking of in the hour that I die. Max Sennett was a cinema visionary who in 1914 in Edendale, produced, directed, and sort of wrote the first feature-length motion picture comedy ever made. It starred Mabel Normand and Charlie Chaplin, Tilly's Punctured Romance. I love the first sentence of Max Sennett's autobiography. I'm an old storyteller, long in the tooth and willing. I'm an old storyteller. They're even talking about making it a movie, but in this town, people talk about making many things a movie. It's 1914, in what is now called Silver Lake and Echo Park, but back then was called Edendale. This was a time when the word movie did not refer to a motion picture. Movie meant anyone who worked in motion pictures. A movie was a person, not a film. And movies were not thought to be desirable neighbors. Many was the sign that read, rooms for rent, no Jews, no movies. The narrator is called Willie. She's 16, which was the age of consent back then. After an eventful day and a long night, Willie ends up in the large prop shed on Max Sennett's ramshackle Keystone Comedy lot in Edendale. Willie's surprised by an older man who, apparently, lives in the prop shed. He speaks in a voice very strange to her because she's never heard a sort of English accent. And this odd old man asks her, will you permit a personal question? If I can ask one back. Fair bargain. My question is, what do you want? Out of life, I mean. What do you want out of life? I want for people to like me as I am. Such prodigious ambition. Then this gentleman tells her he must excuse himself because a sentence has captivated his mind. Willie asks what this sentence is. And he says it twice because if he says it once, he has to say it twice. The relative and the absolute exist in the same continuum. The relative and the absolute exist in the same continuum. Willie sleeps on a prop bed, wakes before first light, and listens. Bird call. Another and another, a thump on the roof. A squirrel, I'd guess, from its pitter-pat step. Too late at night, too light of step for a raccoon. Time for raccoons to call it a day. Time for cats, squirrels, and birds to get a move on and earn their living. I like to lie still and appreciate how dawn light stirs the critters before dawn arrives. And you can't quite mark the moment, I know, because I've tried. When dark's no longer full dark. The stirrings increase gradual like. You hear it's tomorrow before you see. Willie wears only an ankle-length cotton slip, which she was wearing the day before when she burned down her family home, around her family's ears. She'd figured they'd get out all right, and they did. As she says, I tried to tell the truth, and it didn't work. So I did something true. Burning down that house was true, and it was fun. And I'm for fun every time. Now it's morning, and after emptying her chamber pot, Willie looks around the Max Sennett lot to see what's going on. Best place for looking is on a rooftop, a 2-story building with a stucco wall. Willie doesn't need a ladder. What with stucco and windowsills and drain pipes, She climbs up just fine, 'cause she's got agility. Only good thing Daddy ever said to me was, "You got agility. I'll give you that 'cause God gave you that." Willie's up there looking down, observing this and that, and notices across what is now Glendale Boulevard, for what was then called Alessandro, there's a Keystone actress she'd met the night before, who calls herself Devarn. Oh, brother Devarn, she was so pretty and beautiful and gorgeous and lovely, and all kind of words scooped in a pile that you light on fire, and Devarn is that fire. They exchange words, Devarn on the ground, Willie on the roof, ground to roof, roof to ground, and that gets noticed. Oops, we're attracting attention. Get down off of there. You ain't the boss of me. I'm the boss of everything on this lot, including you. Name's Max Sennett. Lordy, where'd he come from? Where'd they all come from? It's like all Keystone's crowding in, and there's a fella walking with a ladder in front of him so as not to swipe anybody down. And here, oh my, that's Miss Mabel Norman. And she's saying, "Oh no, with that ladder." No, you don't. Looking straight up at me, but talking to everyone like the queen of the movies that she is. That gal got up there somehow. Let's see, can she get down? Her big dark eyes smiling, bright with good nature, and I see she's making a play of it all. She says, "I dare you, girlie. I double D dare you. I'm a person you should not dare." Same as I'll bet she is. You dare a certain kind of person, best be ready to live it out. Seems I gotta prove something, and right away, or else I'll bet I'm out of here. I know she's looking for a stunter, and I'm not the only one who knows it. Everybody's eyes are on me, a lot of upturned faces under all kind of hats, wide brim, short brim, stiff brim, with and without feathers. Never had so many folks looking at me all at once. Didn't know the term yet, but I milked it, as they say. Stood this way, stood that way, made like to scratch my head, and then there's fiddle music. Am I a crazy person? No, there's a fiddler, a gal, blowing a circusy tune. And I see then that there's only one thing to do. Standing not far back, there's the real large fella I'd seen day before, and I heard him called Pasha. It was him I picked, pointed straight at him so he'd know. "You they call Pasha." "Me? You. Catch." Never again would there be anything like the feeling that first time. I lit up high so as to point my toes to the sky and flatten my back at the peak of my leap, then down on what I hoped was Mr. Pasha, since I'm descending backwards. Never again would there be that day, with its bright sky in my eyes, those swift-moving white clouds. I'm in the air that loves me and that I love, and that I'd love more and more. Never again this thought that thrilled me, no words for it except maybe, I've just decided out my whole life. 'Cause that's something to happen once, if at all. Since now I know most folks never decide a damn thing, just bump and get bumped from one day to the next. Never again the knowing for the first time that I was a something. I was a movie. And even if they threw me out of here, I'd go be a movie somewhere else now that I know what I could do. Of course, that was stuff I thought later, going back to those moments over and over, as I always would, because there was so much in them to go back to. They'd never fail me, just the little time it took to leap and point my toes and flatten my back and catch me or don't, Mr. Pasha. I've neglected to tell you that Willie is trans. Yes, 109 years ago, before there was a word for us. Trans didn't just show up out of nowhere. We've been around as long as anyone. But it's hard to be what your language has no word for. Without such a word, it's hard for you even to know what you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was wonderful. And now, a poet who many of you know, Sarah McClay, who has published 4 previous collections of poetry, 3 chapbooks. She's a recipient of a City of Los Angeles Individual Artist Fellowship, a Yaddo residency, the Tampa Review Prize for Poetry. Her poems have appeared in many, many journals, as well as in Best American Erotic Poetry. The poems in this new book, Nightfall Marginalia, are lush, seductive, fascinated with all things of the night and with the darker, more shadowy sides of desire. I'm happy to be presenting Sarah and her new book. Please welcome Sarah.
Thanks everybody for coming, especially some students I saw coming in. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy to be reading at Beyond Baroque. I think I must have told Jimmy and Quentin both. I won't really feel like my new book has launched until I've read it Beyond Baroque. It's just such a poetry home away from home for me for so many years. So I'm really glad we were able to do it before the end of the year. I'm also really thrilled that What Books Press has chosen to publish Nightfall Marginalia, and so beautifully. And I want to thank everybody involved with the press, and especially Gail Ronsky for your belief and encouragement, Gronk for this cover image, and to the tireless, talented, skilled, intrepid, and patient Ash Good, among other things, book designer. There's only enough time for a sample tonight, but I want to say that many of the poems in this book are nocturnes or weave in dreams, and in many poems I'm writing from art or by burrowing into it, as we say ekphrastically. You might recognize inspirations from and allusions tonight to Munch, Tamara de Lempicka, moments from a Japanese dance theater company called Sankai Juku, a postmodern and dreamlike company, and Vuillard's painting The Garden at Vaucresson. And I'll end with a poem working a sort of exploded version of an Oulipo constraint. You can ask me what that means later if you don't know. All of these somehow are ways of drawing things out of whatever that place is where I write from anyway, and it's kind of liminal threshold between diurnal and nocturnal realms. So thanks everybody for being with me tonight and with all of us. And again, thanks to Beyond Baroque for having us. A breathing lake. Above us, floating in the dark, like opened lanterns, as the water's onyx sheen closes to opaque. Lotuses, where stars would be, how we wanted to eat them with our eyes, how we almost did. So much closer now that we could almost pull them toward us like austere balloons. All around, our stillness, our suspension. Girl standing with death by the sea. First, there was rain, or the surface was scratched. It was a long distance from green to green. Death was so quiet, so patient. Perhaps there had been trees, living ones, or maybe really just rain or scratches. It reminded her of standing on top of a hill and looking down at the city trailing below. No city, though. Maybe in the distance, a sail or a buoy, or a sprinkle of stars recessed in that intaglio of green, and a road curving along the coastline, but vacant. It's so different from standing on the footbridge with girlfriends or cousins, looking out at the noon lake, or turning around at sunset, removing a hat, letting the lake go black. In another version, the halo was red. There was a halo in that version. It covered her head like a hairband, but she was alone. She stands looking out until dawn, until the greens are mild shades of blue, and indigo is the only place that death might be. Or stone. Nothing but a squiggle, a puzzle piece. Stationary somehow, in little bursts of wind. It moves like a wet shadow, if it moves. Or now it's dark, her hair is longer, she carries a tambourine of yellow roses, and death is only herself, older, and then much older. The one in the middle, that self, opens her legs in a V, naked, clasps her hands behind her head. But she, the sea-looker she, looks out at the sea, feels them standing behind her. She has never seen her own exposure, though she feels it. When she finally sees it, its strangeness, her own. Well, I tell you, I can't explain why, but it makes her radiant. Even when everything goes to woodcut white and black, she stands on a road, and behind her, it is not death, but a woman with hair, herself, and skin, and brows. A woman fully exposed, and her dark-clad companion, night herself. Or no, the only color now is the palest blue of water strafed with cloud, and she stands on the black sand before dawn in her long pale dress, and the frothy, possessed black waves must be wetting her feet, and behind her a figure approaches, a man. We see them from behind. She does not yet hear him. In her private future red bedchamber, in her long dark confusion of hair, there is no shame. Yes, a man, and her three selves, as she stands in ochre fog looking out to the sea. Her hair spills back into cloud, into branch. She is almost a ghost. He clutches his heart, or maybe just his pocket. The moon reflects in the shape of a lingam, not a pearl. All the way down the water, it makes the road larger, pale and wide with light, until we see her turn away from the water, and now the reflection, long as the rising dark of the trees. It is before, just before they touch. Death sits silently by in another version. There are so many versions. No, she was never alone. Hey, lover. Hey, lover, lover, lover. Hunger. The slip was not satin, but poppy. a linen sky gone pale, and the long cascading drapes and walls, that same cool white, but the cypress, its fallen needles, the rooftops were umber, the fence, the beginning of night. Small, invisible cries, and like a wing, that wooden fence grew large with shadow as its shape entered the window, umber, amber bulbs exposed below the flaring black shade, plump with filament, lit, pendulous, and, it seemed, beginning to rise as the languor of too many months without end, enforced unnatural languor, had gathered like silk into the crack of thigh against bent knee, the seam of fleshy upper arm, crease of elbow, the mystery of triangle made by the shade of red cloth fallen high over leg, the shape the covered nipples made as the breasts splayed to balance a hand flung backward out of sight and into foreshadowing, into the scent of the ganja filling the hallway, nearly strong as skunk, curving its way below the door and into the room through the rough-hewn gap where light crept through at night across the closed face, brow held tight as scar above the nose, cold eyes focused by a dust mote on the floor or the inner lip of the terracotta urn. Scent of sugar, sweat, tobacco seeping through the old pipes, clinging to the pillows like a second skin. Galangal nights, arpeggiated dawn. Empty Newport pack on the hell strip, mined like ribbons, leather bangs, time beyond girdle, the giving up, the belly abundant, the giving in, again, 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 again. That was a 2020 poem. Okay. After Vuillard. House is a dappled construct. House is a shadowed land on a small hill. House is before the abundant garden, the bird-like stems and butterflies of flowers pirouetting nearly as large as the windows, or leaves like yellow diurnal bats. House is behind the woman in the satin pink kimono, face as large as the first floor. House is the tiny gardener, head as big as a rose, inspecting the hedge. Perspective is filigreed blue shadow below the white hibiscus, stamens longer than a hand. Windows turning red as the roof in the evening sun, red as the tallest floribunda, is the woman with rose-petal hair in the lattice of shadows, handing, is the dark canoe-shaped shadow on the roof, the figure behind the open curtain, the closed cerulean shutters. Their slightly aged pastel, the texture of their rough wood, the door thrown open, the hot, sweet smell of summer-singed pollen, the soft sounds of garments landing on the floor, is for sale, is her blue hat, is the cracked tectonic floor, is no longer there, is the sun hitting the pavers, the terraced dry dirt steps, the chair, the thorns. Perspective is the removed corset, longer than petals, the flying light, the light flying, night coming on to the left, above the acacia, below the pine, illuminating the chorus line of genies playing their bagpipes as the cannas and the ultimate dwarf bearded irises unfurl, unravel, nearly ragged, vulvic, utterly, and the whole yard is full of flying things, abundantly tethered enough to stay in position for a time, for this moment. The blue, I'm telling you, I can't make out, though it's closer to larkspur than indigo, closer to denim, closer to bamboo. I guess I should be happy. How does it speak? And I'll end with before us. There is a mauve photographic bowl of rain, though some would say a cup. A sultry plague before the fandango of alleys. An armament armband tossed into the grim Corvette at the rehearsal of velour and anise, anklet. A muzzle of parched starlings sleeping like geckos, geishas, geese, just lounging after the Sabbath of compromised kilt, kiln. I'm certain about the alleys and the alliances. I'm certain of the color of the bowl. And did I mention that huddle of parrots? Yes, 5 green, clustered near the beige of the 3rd floor windows. After the honcho, the whole damn holiday opens, and the dam spills into the castanets of the waiting hand. And it's here the maraca ticks like a rattlesnake on a short leash. I'm certain of the Geiger counter, the saber, the stomping, the sticking, and the compensation. It's worthwhile. There's a moan in the attic and one in the basement, a twisting, tweaking, twerking in the den. To be clear, did I say that the bowl is the size of a valley? And did I mention this rush is the color of mauve? As the rehearsal velour deliquesces to velvet dissolving into the smooth vernacular of fur, there's a catch in the breath at the edge of the bed in the lush hush of morning. A slant, a sliver, a sip of new light in the palms. I'm certain of the armature of nothing, as I'm certain that the husk has cracked, its scraps concussed. There's a flamenco that rustles the edges of rust and of dusk and of morning, that rattles the dust from the corridors of musk. This is its cusp, as the licorice pernoes, as socks bloom into paisley stockings, as dawn's viridian muddle of leaves becomes a nest of trust, and armbands, guns are garters, inveterate, seated deep. I'm certain of the moaning, the anemone, the memory, the tangle, and the tango, and the glow, as I'm certain of the shade of this blueberry vermilion and of the green parrots. I am certain. Certain. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful. I should probably note that there are other What Books writers here in the audience tonight, one of whom is Ash Good. Yes. Mariano Zaro. Elena Byrne. And who else? Holiday, yeah, Holiday Mason. And who else? Well, there's Gail, there's Chuck, there's me. But anyhow, it's a good group. So for our final reader tonight, poet Brian Price. Sorry, he's someone who, someone whose work we didn't know. Just sent it in, and we went, "Wow, this is great!" And it's his first book, He has a doctorate in American history and teaches history and humanities at Laguna College of Arts and Design. His poems and stories have appeared in many journals. His first book of poems is A Plea for Secular Gods. It's rich, it's verbally engaging, and kind of blew us all away when it first read it. He lives with his wife Claire in San Diego. So please welcome Brian Price, and thank you very much for coming tonight.
Hello. I'm afraid I'm a little bit nervous again, but I want to echo my fellow writers' thanks to Beyond Baroque. It is truly an honor to be here tonight, and also to all the people at What Books, without whom, obviously, this book wouldn't exist. Certainly not in this beautiful form. Okay. When I read at Village Well, I neglected to say thank you, and I felt guilty about that the whole time. Okay, thank you.
That was the cover.
Here's the cover. I don't know if it's, yeah. And Gronk was amazing and very hospitable to me and my wife when we went to his studio. That was a great day. Okay, the first poem I'm going to read is called Antelope. Was that an atomic disaster, or just the sun reflecting off the windows of a train? I am on the toilet reading about obscure saints. I thought you'd be coming in the dead of night, like a fractal or ghost, but there's quite a few moments of daylight left. She asked, why are you taking that lighter into the garage with you? That's how marriages end. And I put something pastoral on, something with feathers instead of a skin. I learned to play the guitar sometime between Bush stealing the election and 9/11, around the time I was writing The Abortion Story. I have everything in milk crates from then. It's all in pink ink, the cheapest I could find. Someone needs to write the history of nostalgia from stranded soldiers to the end of men, and then sketch the moon and its oceans for me, or maybe just its phases, from dark navy to the most pathologically intense neon, or the other way around. No one knows why I'm like this. Once, the men in my family put a gun into my ear, like I was the antelope, hung my body over the Colorado River, its vein of blood-red sand opening bright, like the creation of continuous time. Dialogues of the Dead. Take me on a leash to see the figure of Orion. Take me to the border between wash and disembowel. Take me on a rope to forgive the rope. Take the rope and make it into a damnable end, a preamble to waking, to making a fetish of, like turnable handles and gentle latches for escaping. Walk me, leave me, omit me, release me from natural history, obscure me with a scrim, with muslin, with an aporia, withstand me, withdraw from me, do not alienate, abolish me. I developed this weird thing when I was writing where I don't put punctuation in, and so it's hard for me to look up and not so unfortunately I have to stare at the page. This poem is called Theogony. First, there was the god of last stands doubling as the spirit of the waxing year, the patron saint of revolutions, both just and unjust. Took the knife that originally severed heaven from earth, covered it in lambskin, like a hand covering a fist, and buried it between sheets of plain white paper, between onion skin. After the suicide of a former lover, there came a screed of little acts, mostly profane and necessarily somber, some with morphine and once with cyanide. Left a note that read, "In the ruins of the internet, there are tapes of me. We can listen to them together. I'm in the honeycomb, in the hive with you." Transgression, repentance. This is not about cognitive decline or our life together held in place with safety pins. I am driving again and reading Robert Graves. Found a volume of his myths in a Santa Maria bookstore. The pages dead leaf yellow and as cold as the day before the paroxysm. You sprayed me down, blackout drunk on the fire escape, my psyche held together between your thumb and blue forefinger, and now thought of as an astral projection or a separate piece of history, a person who could have been a sea captain or sister to the son of his old age. Okay. Insomnia. She says she can produce just the thorax. This was not in a dream, but after I got up to feed the cat, use the restroom, drink water from the tap. I laid back down and closed my eyes. Her face was pantomiming childbirth, like it was turning in on itself. I immediately go to write down the word thorax, force myself to sleep so that I don't look up the word thorax or think about the next words that may come out of her mouth. She has 4 or 5 faces at once. I have insomnia, and I once told my wife it is when I see faces that I know I'm going to fall asleep. And now I see anguished eyes and cheeks clotted with tears, a face that is as ordered as speech, as legible as decay, like the imagination of coherence. She says I can produce a thorax, but just the thorax, not the winged feet or Achilles tendon. Thank you. Poem. Poem buried inside a poem, buried inside a poem about poems. But really, it's a picture of a running horse or a clump of grass. Not clump, but bush, maybe barrel. I cannot even look at it curled up in its sheets like that. To see is not to see, but to know empirically the way that grotesque hand curdles, shakes, trembles us unto dying, like the sun plunging into unspeakable murk. This is me crumpled, never running like water. This is the last bit of it carried away on a maggoty tide of unlife, its inner ear on fire. So I have one short one, and then the last one is going to be a little bit long. This is called 2 Notes on a Piano. I'm going to say the title again because that kind of goes with the first line. 2 notes on a piano, preserved, undiluted, light now, barely touched, reminiscent of dust floating fugue-like up, and now down-fingered apace, declining in repose. 2 notes on a piano, bracketed by forgetting, degrading over a length of tape or sinuous rope stitched together. 2 notes, only an oath. All right, here's the long one. I have a feeling this one also is a 2020 poem. Requiem. In the spring of 1970, 2 died as infants, a requiem for control. Brothers whose tiny hairs were woven into a ring, the likes of which were once set upon the waves of the sea. 2 cosmically pessimistic arias lifting the meaning of chance, of grief up towards myth. The spring of 1970 was of the same maelstrom or arc, the same sense of vertigo. This republic of ashes, spat out or spat upon, fed on like played-out horses, eye drawn to calamities with no promise of recurrence or spot on a map famous for its healing waters. No safe place to draw honey from the rock, just the most sublime forms of harmonious violence. 100 or 1,000 kinds of sadism meant to draw the mouth to its master in a fit of parasitic rage. An imaginary return to the wound naturalized into an origin story of innocence. A childlike remembrance at the heart of the commonweal. A sucking on the past for its proximity to empty time when no one thought yet to eat fire or defile the memory of a dead language. When no one thought yet of the war metaphor, not the forever war, but its prelude and coda separated by an affectionate hand or hard kiss on the wound. Seduced by the promise of sweetness and its illusion of future importance. Never to venture across the street or ride a bus alone into the valley of common recklessness, into the whole panoply of catastrophic decisions and folds of prickly relations expelled past the border sketched with a fingernail around the surface of expectation, the horizon of understanding pushed beyond the outermost contour. Lifting Civil War ballads from the thicket of lost time and embedding them in snow where no snow had ever landed. Listening through the cold crack in the cement wall where their portraits once hung. Listening for the hum or whistle of disaster come calling down across the sky. We have written requiems for much less, elegies to flowers and bushes of flowers with less blood on the leaves. The body has been loaded upon again and again, and it only sucks further and further into the mud like the lamb or lotus given as a gift on the final day of reclamation, only to return upon the earth in the form of a magpie milky from eating the flower of decay. The body is a piano now, rising out of the sand and grass, played poorly by the wind, but its sound or noise is that of our nature scorning itself. The body rings and groans, played now with hammers and tongs, no mystic chords of memory or sympathetic vibrations. The body unfurls like after a long fire, an arm and then a hand, a finger and then a flake of skin or hair spoliated by the melancholy progress of the wind. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. Well, let's give it up one more time for our authors, please. Thank you, thank you. We do have books in the bookstore, all of our What Books authors for tonight, along with other What Book author selections. So please do stick around, enjoy a bit of a reception. And yes, thanks for being here. Have a good night.